Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 577, recorded live on Sunday, October 27th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show, Arkat.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, we got 7 inches of snow last night.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's you and not me. If we got 7 inches of snow, like, the world stops here.
Yeah, Seattle would end.
Yeah, it's not a pretty picture. Although it would give me like a week off of work, which would be
A week?
Well, I mean,
Wow.
well, at least a couple of days, probably. So, I mean, look, 7 inches of snow around here is like, that's a stopper kind of a thing. Now,
yeah, I'm sure.
On the one hand, that would be great. On the other hand, that would be terrible.
Right.
So,
not so good for your financial picture.
Well, less that and more, it's really bad timing. And I'll actually get that a little bit later.
Oh, right. You were talking about that
yeah.
before the show.
Let's see. This week's screenshot. The Guild Monster Ops neutralization looks epic in their Reaper armor in the 437th screenshot of the week. Thank you, Ryu Cox, for sending in this week's screenshot. There you go. That's the 4 Reaper armors currently in the game. Although the one guy's cheating. That's a tiefling, not actually wearing the red helmet, but.
Oh, on the left, yeah.
Yeah. Although it looks surprisingly similar.
Seriously. I think this is a really good shot. I don't like how it could have been centered better, but composition wise and all the colors and stuff, I like a lot. It's a good shot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That's gotta be like Dreaming Dark, right? You got the purpley stuff going in the background.
I don't recall that door though.
That's true. Maybe it's a door you come in.
maybe, yeah.
Someone turned around and saw that.
I could see that. Yeah, before you go down to the the hedges and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of places where you can find that background though. So.
Right. True.
That's or unless it maybe at night somewhere. I don't know. Anyways, it's a really very colorful screenshot.
Yes.
We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will be next weekend on Sunday, the 3rd, November 3rd. Wow, we're already in November. Trying to get ahead a little bit better and stop being behind here. But in any case, we're going to be talking with Evil Beaker. We should be talking with him, and we're going to be doing a preview of Keep on the Borderlands and kind of what the history of that and stuff like that. That's the plan there. We've been doing that for a lot of the kind of classic adaptation kind of stuff that Evil Beaker's been really generous with his time and putting stuff together and a little history lesson, which I think has been a lot of fun. So we'll do that for Keep on the Borderlands, which should be coming out soon.
And he's the perfect guy to do that kind of thing, give you the history of D&D and stuff. He's been there since almost the beginning.
Yeah, he's been involved with D&D both professionally and as what would we call? No, amateur is not the right word.
Casually? Hobbyist. There you go.
Yeah, I like that one.
Good word.
So he'll give us a lot of great insights into Keep on the Borderlands, and he did a great job with the other ones that he's done too. So that should be a lot of fun. Anyways, let's see. On the podcast this week, we're going to do a topic of flavor and concept builds, which Arkat will actually be driving the discussion, which will be great. For reasons that will become clearer shortly. We also got some community and game news. And boy, this is going to be a fun game news discussion, I think. So let's jump into that. So there's a couple things to kind of get through. One is that they have been recently troubleshooting an issue that caused some players to not be able to register a new account. This issue has been corrected. Thank you for your patience. So yeah, that's good. We want new people to be able to register.
Yeah, I just wonder what took them so long to correct it.
Probably too many fires in the kitchen.
Well,
it's kind of felt like that the last couple of weeks.
Yes, that in itself says something. So, but we'll just leave that alone.
Anyways, Cordovan was actually on the show last weekend and talked about they were planning on opening up Lomania last week, and he'd mentioned that before. Unfortunately, Preview 1 for Update 44 did not open this week. However, they have announced that it will open this week, this coming week. So Update 44, Preview 1, so it's expected to open sometime in the early afternoon of Tuesday, October 29th, and remain open until sometime late in the afternoon, times both Eastern, Thursday, October 31st, and there's expected to be a dev event on Wednesday, October 30th from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, where members of the DDO team will be available to collect feedback and answer questions in real time on Lomania. This preview will contain some, but not all of the features and changes expected to be included in Update 44. This preview is expected to contain the following features: the Keep on the Borders Adventure Pack. So they will have 4 dungeons available. They are expecting 8 in the Adventure Pack, but only 4 are planned. There will be a new adventure area, a new public space. The level range, which is always something people want to know. Heroic will be level 1 to 2. Epic will be 21 to 22, which I'm not super excited about.
No.
But conceptually, also, I can understand why. I mean, if you're gonna make a set of quests that are level 1 and 2, making them level like 31 and 32 does that really make a lot of sense? Question mark.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, that's kind of. I agree, and to be honest, if they do a really good job with that, I think that there is space for kind of an introductory level range to epics. That's kind of just me.
Mean like the 21 to 22 like they're going to do, or are you talking like 18 and 19?
No, I mean like 21, 22.
Okay.
Like quests, because if you think about kind of what's in that level range, is Menace the Underdark, which is it's not really an introduction so much. It doesn't really teach you anything about mechanics and epics and how epic is different.
No.
And then there's a bunch of stuff that is adapted from, was converted into epic content.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Most of which was actually, that work was pretty much all done before we got Menace the Underdark, which is when you got epic, normal, hard, elite. It was just epic then.
Yeah.
And then they kind of converted it.
The desert is
Desert,
out there,
Vons,
the Demon Sands,
Red Fens.
Yeah.
So at first glance, like there's a lot of content at 21 and 22. So I understand why people will be like, 21 and 22? Like, do we need more content at that level? But I could see a space where if you had content that was better about introducing players into that level range, could be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, I mean, the content that we have available at level 21 and 22 is all really old.
Yes.
So some fresh new stuff there, not terrible.
Right.
I don't know how much I'll play in epics, but
yeah, what would be cool is if this epic 21 and 22 stuff was different. Maybe the floor plans are a little different, or the choice of monsters are different.
It won't be.
Which really annoys me. It should be, but it would, but I get why you say that.
Yeah, it's much more likely that it's just going to scale up. I do like how things change. Like, we look at the Sands, and there's some subtle differences that really kind of amplify that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because they crafted them in different, like, they're completely different quests. So I'm not expecting a lot there. Anyways, so that's what we're looking at for Keep on the Borderlands. New named loot, of course. We're gonna mounts. We're gonna come back to this.
Mm-hmm.
UI quality of life additions. Hey, here's some stuff that we've been waiting for.
This is the most important stuff I found. The stuff that I like to see the most was some of these changes.
Yeah, no, I agree. So the two things that they listed here is a new side tab in the stats section of the character sheet that displays a wide variety of statistics. Fantastic.
Hopefully kill counts and things like that. That would be awesome.
I mean, that's kind of in the monster manual.
kind of.
Well, I mean, it gives you kill count for specific monsters, both for yourself and that character and account wide. Um, but I mean, there's so many statistics that the character sheet doesn't really show. I mean, you can hover over a bunch of stuff and see some of that stuff, which is
Right.
good. It's better than nothing, but there's still some stuff that's just missing. So that would be really nice. Also, and we've been waiting for this, the Adventure Compendium Heroic and Epic Quest level sorting.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, so right now, if you look at the compendium, and a quest has an Epic and a Heroic version, you see that they're all in the same line. Well, I think they're still going to be on the same line, but it just kind of mushes together Heroic and Epic. So you can't. There's kind of ways that you can tell if you run it on one or the other, but sort of not. Not unless you're like really reading and paying attention. This is gonna break that out, which I think will be really helpful. The bigger part of it is like if you're trying to get the level range of quests, right? Like that's where it's gonna really leverage itself really well. Because right now it sorts by heroic level, and then it gives you the epic level in parentheses, but it doesn't sort by that.
Right.
And my understanding is it will after this, which will be great. So looking forward to that. The other thing that's there's also just kind of generically some miscellaneous smaller features and bug fixes that they said. Don't know what those are, but hey, that's kind of nice.
I can tell you some folks want one of the new sets, not a filigree set, but an item set that evidently is just the actual bonuses the set bonuses are actually for if you have the legendary set, all you're getting is I believe you're just
version?
getting the heroic version
Oops.
of the bonuses. Yeah.
Not the first time that's happened, actually.
So
It happens. I think
hopefully that's there.
They fixed the there was a quest that was given the wrong loot too, I think.
They fixed that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they fixed that. But anyways, so there you go. Update 44 preview. If I was gonna make some educated guesses here, if they follow normal cadence, so we're looking at essentially end of October. So there'll probably be another preview. I would guess probably the week of November 11th. Kind of be my guess. Cordovan indicated it sounds like they're trying to get it out before Thanksgiving, even.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's pretty tight now since they're a week behind, or I think they maybe wanted to be.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing we're probably looking at this as coming out. Either it's going to come out early the week of the 17th, or probably the week of December 2nd, maybe the week after that. That's
so you don't think
you don't
think they'll put it out the week of Thanksgiving?
No.
Okay. Well, no, I can see why. Nobody will be around to do bug fixes and that sort of thing. So yeah.
And they shouldn't. In fact, last week, I think Cordovan even referenced when they released Champions like the week before Christmas, and how that was really not fun for the team. And we want them to have these guys work hard. We want them to have their holidays with their family and stuff like that. So.
Oh, nonsense.
Anyways, let's see. Some other stuff. Let's see. Alchemist will not be in update 44. It is not quite ready yet. They will let us know as they get closer to the class release. So probably early next year. I'm gonna guess probably February.
Well, it's so Cordovan posted on the forums that it was not going to be an update 44.
Sure.
But he didn't say that it was going to be an update 45 either. So what I'm wondering is if maybe they release Alchemist as part of an update, like maybe it's 44.2 or in 44.1. So maybe we'll get it before the end of the year.
Yeah,
I kind of think you're right. I kind of think we'll get it after, but
yeah, we won't get it before.
But it could be we could get it before the end of the year.
Maybe, I would guess New Year. But they've become. It's interesting. They have become SSG is much more willing to release new features as part of a patch as opposed to an update these days.
Yes.
I think part of that is I think it kind of almost started, maybe not, but the raids in the last 2 expansions have kind of come as patch afterwards.
Hmm.
I think that there's been other things that have been dropping as part of patches, so they're really kind of accepting more of a model of this is done, it's ready. Why do we need to wait another 2 months before our next update? Let's just give it to them now, which is great. Really appreciate that.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. It makes their numbering a little less meaningful, but it's arbitrary anyway. So.
Sure.
But yeah, so the update patch numbering has become a lot less, should we say, tied together than it used to be. All right, let's see. The next thing to talk about. Hey, Hardcore League closing. So they released an FAQ about what Hardcore League closing is going to look like. So the first Hardcore League is in its final stretch, so they want to take a few minutes to outline the plans for the wrap-up of the event and to answer your questions. Hardcore League will remain open through November 15th, and the event will formally come to an end when we close the world at an exact time to be announced as we get closer to the end date. After that time, they will collect the data they need to announce winners, prepare for their inclusion in a list in the Hall of Heroes, publish character names on the DDO Chronicle, and do anything else that they need to do. In early December, they will reopen Hardcore for several weeks so players can put items into their character inventories, shut down and disband their guilds, and do the things they need to do before transferring the character to the world of their choice. They will be opening a free world character transfer service from the Hardcore service to any of the non-Hardcore servers, so players can keep playing any of the characters that they have created. Which, to be honest, is probably one of the smartest things they did in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The exact timing of the reopening of the Hardcore server will be listed here as they get closer to the date. Essentially, the reason why they're not putting out a date specifically at this point is they're not really sure how much work they need to do and how much time it's going to take to do that work. I have a feeling that part of that is, you notice if we just talked about Update 44, and this is happening in early December, and we're kind of projecting Update 44 to happen before Hardcore server reopens.
It's going to be a perfect storm of all bunch of stuff going on at the exact same time.
Yeah, so they're kind of spreading it out a little bit there, I think, which is smart.
Sure, good idea.
As someone who is currently in the boat of, hey, can you guys work a whole lot of extra hours? I can appreciate not wanting to. So they're going to open it. Some things to note with character transfers. If you're not really familiar with how some of this works, these things will not transfer with your character. Your friends list, your ignore list, your guild name, level, airship, amenities, membership ranks, and other guild-related benefits. You will appear in a new world guildless. Items in your true reincarnation cache. So if you have a true reincarnation cache, empty it. Items bid or on or posted to the auction houses. In-game mail. Your shared account bank and your crafting storage. So empty that too. Your character bank does transfer, just not the other stuff. Your creature companion stable. You cannot be the leader of a guild and transfer your character from one world to another. If necessary, please promote a successor to or other guild member to leader, or just disband your guild prior to undergoing a character transfer. Probably the disband part, since
disband guilds is the smart thing to do.
Although
no reason to hose somebody else over because they didn't know they were a guild leader.
Yeah. You cannot be logged into the game world while undergoing a character transfer. If you do, you'll be kicked from the game world and receive an erroneous ban message. You are not banned. It's just related to a technical mechanism. If your name is being used in the world you're transferring to, your name will be appended with a -1, and you'll be granted a one-time free rename credit. While logged into the character world you wish to change the name of, type /change name, and then the new name into the chat panel to change your name. That this will all happen through the game launcher. It's This is all exactly the same as a character transfer of any other character. The only difference is it's going to be free. Yay, free.
Yay.
Yeah.
Free's good.
Yep. Reminder that this is going until November 15th. That's the date they're going to shut it down at some point. Time to be determined. I would hazard a guess that it will probably be later in the day, Eastern time, as opposed to early in the day.
Sure.
It may even be November 16th, early in the morning. They do have a habit of saying things that, like for sales and bonus days, this will run through, and we'll tie, the ones for the bonus day for this weekend will run through October 27th, which is today, and they'll actually turn it off tomorrow morning Eastern time on the 28th.
Oh, this is
I don't know
interesting.
I don't know if they'll do that with hardcore, but that's kind of typical of other things.
And this is interesting. The 15th of November is a Friday, so if they were going to do what you were suggesting, they would have to close. If they did do it that way, they would close it down on Saturday, first thing Saturday morning.
Yes.
So
I mean, there's people that work on Saturday for SSG.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
There's people that
They can make Lena Bell come in, and because she's the newest, and make her shut down the server.
That's true anymore. And she's also not an intern anymore. However, they, I'm sure there's ways that they can figure that out. But I don't know that that's going to be true. They did say that they're going to announce an exact time, which is good because I think that gives people a better idea. So, although it would really be lame to be like rushing into that, get to that last reward, right, and then die like an hour before the server is going
right
down.
Right.
Rough. Anyway, so there you go. So there's some information about Hardcore League. Also, Hardcore League requires VIP or season pass membership for access. Players will need to have that or to access Hardcore League server in order to log into the game world even after the event is over. So, if you are someone who has VIP through, just after the event or something like that, but it ends before December, may I suggest get all the stuff done that you need to done before December, or before November 15th, before everything closes, and be ready to go. With regards to dead characters, there are discussions happening. At this point in time, your character will still be dead. They have not announced anything anything to suggest otherwise. They're looking into it. They're having that discussion. There's a chance you may be able to get back to access some of that stuff, but just be aware that currently they have not given any promises to say that if you're dead, you'll be able to access a bank or anything like that. So be aware of that. You can make
I've got a question.
characters and pull stuff over too if you need to as well. So
sure. I've got a question though.
Sure.
What about the store? Will the store be accessible during this last couple of weeks in December that that you have to?
So if you wanted to buy bank
basically
space,
transfer your stuff, yeah, exactly, buy more space.
My guess would be yes. I don't really. I mean, my guess would be that it's either all store or no store. So, I don't think you're going to see anything change to that. And as I kind of predicted, like we haven't seen Autos boxes on sale since Hardcore went live.
Mm-hmm.
Although conveniently, Hardcore is ending on November 15th, and that's going to be right before Cyber Monday and Black Friday.
All the Christmas sales and stuff, yeah.
Thanksgiving sales, yeah. So I'm going to hazard a guess that we'll be seeing some double bonus points and Autos boxes in the store not too long.
Plus 8 tomes.
Yeah, there might. Well, plus 8 tomes. I mean, they've had tomes on sale during the time frame, so which I think is actually kind of smart because people were buying tomes. I guarantee it on Hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would expect the store to be available if you wanted to buy extra bank or character space. I would maybe suggest that it would be cheaper just to make a new character, throw a bunch of stuff on it, transfer it, take the stuff off, delete the character, rinse and repeat as needed. But to each their own. Yeah, there
Will
you
you
go.
be able to create a new character during
I would
those?
assume so. They're bringing the server up. Like,
Right.
they have not shown me anything that says that they can turn off character creation for a
Yeah.
server that's open, just like the store. So, um, I would assume yes.
Okay.
They will have already gathered the numbers of things. I have no idea what's going to happen if you die during this time frame.
Right.
That might trap you as well. So don't go cliff jumping without feather fall and stuff like that. There's some of the stuff that they have to kind of figure out too. There's people asking more questions, and there's been at least one or two that has been, I don't know. This is my guess, but we need to discuss this.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the one that I saw that with, and I don't remember what it was. But people are asking great questions there as well. As they come out with more answers, we'll be sure to mention it here as well, so that you get that information as well. But keep an eye on that stuff. We will link to the hardcore league closing FAQ, and keep an eye on that as we get closer there. All right, so let's talk about perhaps one of the most surprising things, at least for me, that I saw this week.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue that this was coming. I had no idea.
Mounts are coming to DDO. I mean, they've kind of ancillarily talked about mounts as an idea and a concept, but this is that was always kind of a, yeah, we know people would like mounts. We don't know what they would look like in the game, but anyways, mounts are coming. So Cordovan dropped this on the live stream on Wednesday, and showed mounts footage. Don't necessarily need to look. I mean, if you want to go look at the video, we'll link to it. It's kind of just him running around on a horse. Pull out kind of the big ideas here. Right now, they're just going to be horses. I've already seen a couple of people say, "Hey, if I have a halfling, I want to ride a T-Rex or something like that."
Or a dog or something. Yeah, yeah.
There's suggestions already coming. It is interesting though. Like, are they going to scale it for halflings and gnomes? Or are they going to be riding a giant horse?
They really need to do. They need to do it what Latro did. They need to do some of the things that Latro did. They have horses and they have ponies. So so the halflings there can ride ponies. So you don't have a problem with scaling because they're completely different animals. So I would imagine that the horses that they have for halflings, I guess they'll have to scale those because they said only horses for now.
I think. Well, I think they need to scale based on your race, because if anything, I'm going to assume that these are going to be at least in the store, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
and probably there'll probably be some that you can get in game through favor. It would not surprise me if a level of favor for keep on the Borderlands, assuming it's something new, would be a mount. Sure. That would make sense. But if you think about how DDO works, right? Like, you reincarnate, you change, like, the game mechanics encourage you to replay your character as a different race. So if mounts are race restricted, that's going to be kind of lousy.
Yeah.
Especially if you're buying one in the store. So I figure they almost have to scale them based on your character avatar, or just not, and it's going to look weird. I mean, that would be an option. They usually don't do stuff like that, right?
I could imagine a halfling on a Clydesdale or something. That'd look kind of weird.
Yes. I expect that they'll come up with something for that. Maybe they'll give them leg extensions or something. I don't know. Anyways, but right now, just horses. So they're probably going to come up with other ideas. Because they've been talking about, is it Isle of Dread? The one, the pack with the dinosaurs?
Yeah, X1. Module X1. Yes.
I bet you when that comes out that they'll have dinosaur mounts. So
you would hope, like velociraptors for, or maybe something a little bit bigger. Yeah.
But I mean, that seems plausible, right?
Sure.
So what we know about mounts, they will have variable speeds based on the mount. So some will be faster than others. you will only be able to use them in public and explorer areas. So you can't use them in quests and dungeons.
Yeah.
Just public and
Be
explorer
hitting your
areas.
head all the time down in the sewers.
I mean, explorer areas is great, right? I mean, one has to wonder how fast can you run on a mount in like Stormhorns? Is it suddenly become because my choice when I go to Stormhorn to go to the upper quest is to pay the shards to go to
Yeah.
breaking the ranks, then run over to get the
Yeah, it would
teleporter.
be nice if the Stormhorns, which is a beautiful place, it would be really, really nice if you just could just get on your horse and get to where you're going relatively fast and still be able to see all the sights. That
Yep.
would be awesome.
Um, so I'm excited about that. That's a great way to use them. I think in explorer areas. Public space could be kind of interesting and chaotic, but whatever. It's public space. Who cares?
Sure, marketplace it could get awfully crowded.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's smart though, because if it's in a public space, other people can see you running around and like, oh, I want this. How do I get this?
Hmm.
Right?
Sure,
Um,
free advertisement for something
yes,
in the store.
yeah. And you know it's gonna be in the store.
Hmm.
Let's see. Damage can dismount you. So if you are running around an explorer and some monsters catch up to you or do a bunch of damage, it will dismount you. So that will be something to think about. Price to be determined. They did not say anything about pricing.
Yeah, of course.
They're probably still trying to figure that out. And kind of how to get it and stuff.
I
So
guarantee you they'll start high, and then as people complain or whatever, or make
you think?
suggestions, they might to reduce.
I feel like they're actually pretty good about picking prices on stuff. I mean, it seems like stuff sells pretty good, but I don't know. I don't pay that close attention to a lot of the newer stuff, so
Hmm.
um, I don't know. I think they do.
I
Gonna
just
do a
say
pretty good
that
job.
because this is something that's so completely new and
New, yeah.
alien and new to the game that who knows how useful these are going to really be to players.
You got to imagine though that there's going to be different pricing based on different ones. Maybe
Oh, sure, the fastest ones will go for
sure.
more than the slower ones for sure.
It could be interesting. They could have a couple different parameters too beyond just the look and the speed, right? Because
Hmm.
you could have like maybe they some can it might be slower, but you can take more damage before you get
Take more
dismounted.
damage and not get dismounted. Maybe you
Yeah,
could actually ride through that orc pack
yeah,
up in the
it
Stormhorns or
could be
something.
interesting. No,
Sure.
I wasn't particularly too impressed with the graphic that they had. I
No.
mean, it's still kind of early as
Sure.
well, um, but I'm intrigued by the mechanic. I think it's also I like the mechanic just from the standpoint that some of those explorer areas are really big,
Hmm.
and I kind of like that, right? Like it is kind of fun to see that. Um, but like if you have to run through it to get to a dungeon, ugh,
Well,
pain.
that's why they should make flying mounts, and they should design outdoor areas to accommodate, very
Flying.
high ceilings, as it were, so they could accommodate flying mounts.
It's interesting that you say that. They did. Someone did make a post like, "Hey, wings would be more fun than mounts." And the response Cordovan gave was, forgive me for paraphrasing. Essentially, it's not just as easy as putting up in a high ceiling, right? There are design aspects that kind of break down when you add that level of verticality. Um, that 3-dimensional aspect of it.
Oh, sure.
So
Like all the things that are on the ground you're completely immune to now. I mean, all the even the guys with arrows, and bows, and stuff. Maybe they don't can't hit you, and they don't really present any sort of a challenge anymore. But that's the way it is that's the way it is in Dungeons and Dragons, and whenever some of the players start to get the fly spell or the teleport spell or whatever, then become things that were a thing, when they were a lower level, are no longer are trivial and don't matter anymore. Which is why the game designers slash DMs need to develop new challenges for flying characters or flying mounts or teleporting characters, for example. They've got to just do something different from what they've done before.
sure. Yeah, I don't know. I got the impression based on what you're saying too, is like a lot of it is like graphical based too, and like things. I don't know.
Sure, but
I'm
again,
all in
Patrick,
favor of having flying, so I'm not
WoW. World of Warcraft has had flying mounts forever.
sure.
So I mean, so somebody has been able to deal with the challenges
Mhm.
in engine and dungeon design. So I don't see why it would. Well, I guess maybe okay, maybe that's unfair. Standing Stone Games has a much smaller studio than Blizzard, so maybe
Probably.
their resources aren't as extensive. But I still feel that they should at least try to design for a third dimension.
And especially, when we're talking about flying mounts too. I mean, keep in mind you only need to deal with public spaces, and explore areas. Now, granted, there's a bunch of those.
Yeah,
Some of which probably already have, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say that Waterworks and the House Cannith stuff, I mean, they already have ceilings, so
right.
probably not a concern. But,
Sure.
uh, and
Yeah,
it
you're
all
not going
comes,
to take your horse or your griffin into the waterworks. Flying there doesn't really do you anything.
yeah.
Do you any good?
Um, no, I think the question becomes, like, is it worth the work, right? Because it's probably going to be
Sure.
someone. Now, if it was someone playing with this and over the course of a year and a half, like slowly going through these spaces and allowing for that verticality, I'm okay with that. I I wouldn't really be in favor of, as much as I think it'd be fun to be able to fly around on a mount. I don't think that I'm really in favor of, okay, this this dev cycle, this update, we're not having new content. We're just gonna go back over all of the content you can have flying mounts in, and make flying mounts feasible. Eh, that's less cost effective in my opinion. But I don't
Sure,
know.
and
We'll see.
it's not going to affect as many people because
Mhm.
not everybody's going to have a flying mount. However, everybody is concerned about bugs and so forth. So you could combine a third a verticality update with a bug fix update kind of thing.
Been a
So you
while since
could
they've done a really hardcore bug fix update, isn't it?
I honestly I don't remember the last one they did. They need to
Well, they
do one.
did. I think they're. I think part of the reason is they're a little better about planning some time to fix bugs. Because I mean, you see a bunch of update notes and stuff like that, and they've got bug fixes in them. So it's not like they're not fixing bugs. But so I don't know. Let's talk about bonus days and kind of move on. I think unless you got anything else you want
Sure.
to say about mounts.
Nope.
Bonus days through October 27th. Hey, here we are again. So turned off sometime tomorrow morning, probably. DDO
Mhm.
bonus days brings you a plus 25% Cannith crafting boost. I believe that's not XP. That's like you get
I think that's
it's a a success chance boost, right?
oh, okay. I don't know. Was it? Wow, that's pretty big.
I don't know,
I
to be
thought that would have
honest,
been experience.
but it doesn't say
Huh.
experience, and usually it
Okay.
does. It just says crafting XP. Uh, anyways, also, we should mention Night Revels continues through November 3rd. So if you still got time to run that. Store news. They did mention the 10th anniversary free to play bundle, which has, among other things, a +8 Supreme Tome. I think a Heart of Wood. Can't remember what kind. It's got a bunch of goodies in it. Is At this time they have no plans to remove it, so you can buy it whenever you want. It's not a limited time thing, which is cool. You can still only buy it once per account, though. So just FYI. I think it was. I should have looked this up. I think it was about just under 5,000 points. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's right.
I
49.95. I
think that's
think
what
you're
it
right.
was. But if you like actually add up the stuff that's in there, it's like over 7,500 points, maybe 1,000 points, something.
Yeah, yeah.
1,000,
It's a good
10,000 points.
deal.
No, it's a deal. I remember the numbers being like it's about 50% off, but it is a bit of a sticker shock. And people people did point out that you're celebrating free to play by offering a really expensive item, or maybe it was like 4,000 points. I don't know. Anyways, you can save up for it. That's the important thing. If you want to get it, you can save up for it and get it later, right? So, also on this note, usually, just FYI, especially we probably have some people returning and new players with hardcore and stuff like that. If you're listening to this podcast, FYI, typically around Thanksgiving and or Christmas, there's usually some really good sales on expansion packs and stuff in the marketplace. Caveat: you have to actually spend real money. It's not you spend points on this stuff. But in years past, it's been pretty typical that Menace the Underdark and Shadowfell Conspiracy are 75% off. I think the starter pack is oftentimes also on sale. And boy howdy, 75% off of that. I mean, you're paying like $3.
Yeah, and you're getting points. You're getting DDO points with that
Yeah,
as well.
you get some points.
So.
You get a couple of adventure packs. Especially if you're not VIP, these are things worth looking at because a lot of them come with adventure packs and stuff like that, and point codes. There's also with is it just Menace the Underdark or is it also Shadowfell Conspiracy? There's like a $60 point bundle that add on to those, and it's like if you do the math, it's actually, other than triple bonus points, which we've only seen once, it's the best point per dollar ratio you can get.
Yeah, I thought it was just the one.
I think it might just be Menace the Underdark.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're talking about you can buy with the 75% off. You can buy Menace the Underdark, the cheap pack, for $5, and then pay the $60 for that, and you get a bunch of points with it. But in any case, you may wish to plan your money sales in there as well. Also, I would fathom and guess that autos boxes are going to be coming on sale not long after hardcore, and double bonus points will probably be in that same kind of general time frame. We're due, and it's a time that historically there usually is some bonus point stuff going on there. So, store sales for this week: you can get a boost 25% off of Sovereign XP elixirs, Treasure Hunter elixirs, Greater Slayer boost, long-lasting Supreme Ability potions now through October 31st. And you can get 50 Omni Spell Dust with the coupon code DUSTME through October 31st as well. Community stuff. Community news. See, the 356th Chronicle. Team Standing Stone Games conducted their annual Extra Life Marathon yesterday on twitch.tv/DDOstream. So you can go back there and check that out if you are interested in listening to that.
Do we know where they are in their goal? Have they reached their $10,000 goal yet?
I don't. Unfortunately, I do not know where they are. Probably close-ish, if not there.
They were around $8,400 the last time I checked, and that was like a couple of days ago. So,
they had a big start, so I kind of imagine it's going to kind of trickle in the rest of the way
drop
there.
off.
So.
Yeah.
I think they're going to like mid-November. I think so. There's still time. And if you want to donate to Extra Life, I mean, please do. It's a great program. It helps sick kids. It's well worth putting some money into. But they also have some really nice perks and prizes and stuff like that, including if they make the goal, they're giving away like 3 Ultimate Ultimate Sharn packs. So. And you just have to give $10 to be entered into that. So that could be a good way to get that if you haven't already. Let's see. Strum Tom has released part 2 of his video series about repro difficulty, so you can check that out. Let's see. They are doing a new section of the Chronicle. The player shout out. So they're spotlighting one player every week. If you know someone who makes DDO great, you can let them know. This week we highlighted Bermodo Dragon, Bearmageddon of the North, also known as another form of bear, is a class act and asset to DDO and Standing Stone Games. Was only going to play a few weeks, but he not only made the game more interesting and fun, he took me under his wing and showed me things I didn't know. He taught me about the different items, what the various terminology was, what works with what and what doesn't. On a personal note, we chat about things not game related. He's a valuable friend to me now. He literally opened up a whole new game for me, and I purchased a year-long subscription and found new enjoyment in the game and made a friend. Thanks, Bear and DDO, and see you out there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So this is kind of should we say, an alternative to the Guild Spotlight, basically.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to nominate a player, you can email contact@sandstonegames.com with the subject line Player Spotlight. There you go. Great way to give friends a shout out there. The Chronicle comments. What mount should DDO bring into the game? I mean, besides flying and dinosaurs? Or should we just leave it at that?
I actually think a bison would be cool. Have a bison rider
Bison?
might be. Yeah.
Interesting. An owlbear, maybe?
There's somebody posted a picture of somebody riding an owlbear in one of
Ooh.
the threads.
Rust monster.
Oh no. No thanks.
Really fast and really durable and like goes through constructs and stuff, but as you sit on it, you take item damage.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Okay, terrible idea. Let's see, fan site news. We got a shout out for our episode last week talking about Extra Life. Bonnie Bew is getting ready for her November 2nd and 3rd Extra Life Marathon, featuring a mashup between The Weekend at Bernie's and Tomb of the Wizard King.
Who is Bonnie Bew?
She's been on the show a few times. She's running around with the damsels a few times.
Okay.
She twitches DDO as well. So one of the many personalities. She doesn't tend to do as much airtime as much.
I didn't know whether she was a rather an SSG personality or
no, she was a
player.
She's a player.
Okay.
See, DDO stream features streamers playing DDO all week long on Twitch. So recent shows are highlighting Alex and Lynn, Even Notes, DDOPL, Brighter Days Ahead. Let's see, other streamers on Twitch are also playing DDO. You can find recent streams on Voodoo Spice, Zentetsu, Aminal TV, and Druid's Fire. And YouTube gets a shout out for Dirty William, Donald Wilson, Evil Dragon, and Samus Karobo. So if you want to check out some people playing DDO, there you go. Given the fact that we're not a huge game population-wise, and
No, but we have a lot of
15
streamers.
years old. Yeah, like it's pretty impressive actually. Let's see, Talking Shop, Hardcore League FAQ has a link and link to the sneak peek of mounts and stuff like that, and the Borderlands stuff. All right, moving right along. Don't forget to check out D&D on DDO stream Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Apologies for the last couple months have been rough. There's just been things that seem to be coming up. We're trying really hard to get back into making sure there's something every week, even if it's pre-recorded or a rerun. So apologies for that. As soon as I get past this hump in my life right now, we'll be taking making sure some other stuff is happening and kind of get that a little bit more organized and reorganized. So, but we should have a show tonight. Evil Beaker will be running Heroes of Battle Rise, which was the inaugural group, which you can come watch me swing an axe and make fun of other people as a player. But it should be a lot of fun. Probably have pre-recorded episodes or come up with something the next couple of weeks, just because things are getting kind of crazy with holidays and life and stuff like that. But Brock and Friends is saying that Extra Life right now the campaign is at $14,600. So it's doing really well, which is great.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That
Nice.
means they made the goal, which is fantastic.
Yeah, by a lot, and they surpassed it by a
Yes.
lot. That's really good news.
We'll have to see what Cordovan comes up with for 20,000. I warned him. I asked him last week. So what's the goal? What's the prize going to be for 20,000?
And did he not have any suggestions, or was he just too scared to even think about it?
I think he mostly kind of said that he doesn't want to do like stunt things, but other than that,
Right.
I don't think he'd really gotten around to giving it much thought or something. I don't know. Anyways, let's see. DDOCast news. DDOCast Splat is going to look a little different for a little while. I've kind of alluded to this. I'm getting run over at work right now. And will be for a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to be on vacation for a week because I hear those are nice. So
Vacations are way overrated.
I don't know about that.
No.
I've been looking forward to going on vacation since the
Yeah,
last one.
sure.
I came back from vacation. I was like, that was really nice. I should do this more often.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't
I
wait
need
for the
another
next
one.
one. um, in any case, we're still kind of looking at what that's going to look like. But DDOCast flat may be going on without me for a little bit of time. But we've got a calendar that I try to keep up to date when I'm not getting flattened with work and stuff like that, which seems to be a constant theme of my life. But trying to get ahead and on at least the show and making sure the show is happening regularly and less off the cuff than it has been for a couple months and more reliable and stuff like that. Good news is I think I have the next month plotted out for DDOcast. So waiting to kind of nail down a few things, but we'll see. So there we go.
Any preview you want to give us?
Sure. Well, I alluded next week. We're looking at doing the Keep on the Borderlands preview. Then trying to line up and ask the devs about
I was
hardcore.
just gonna say, is there going to be any Ask the Devs episodes?
Yeah. So I am trying to get one of those in because I think it'd be a lot of fun to kind of talk to them about hardcore specifically, but then also probably a little bit about keeping the Borderlands and stuff like that. Although we've talked with them about some of that stuff too. And then there will definitely be a hardcore post-mortem
There.
topic.
How perfect.
Right?
That's awesome. A post-mortem. That's
Yes.
great. Or an autopsy,
Yeah,
that same sort of thing. That's
that
great.
so that'll be a thing. So we'll talk about which we'll kind of focus on. I mean, we've talked about hardcore a lot, but just kind of like give a wrap up of our thoughts on hardcore. Do we want it to come back? What do we want it to look like if it comes back? That kind of stuff. So that's where we're going. And then longer term, like I want to get an episode about building tanks, kind of in today's environment. Kind of the next trajectory that we're going on.
That sounds like a good episode.
And depending on how far those topics go, that might even take us into year in review kind of stuff. So, just only 8, 9 weekends before the end of the year. So,
Yep.
coming up. All right. Well, speaking of topics, hey, let's jump into our topic for this week, talking about flavor and concept builds. And with my crazy work, this is something that you want to talk about. So take it away, man.
All right. So, yeah, this is so Patrick every week, has been asking us for show ideas, and I figured, well, this is something that I been thinking about and that I do, and I thought, well, this might be an interesting topic. So I emailed Patrick, and we're finally getting around to doing it. So, so the idea is a rather, I guess, really like to start off with is what is a flavor slash concept build. Um, you see a lot of builds on the forums, and they're really put up mostly by min maxers. They are the they usually have at least 2 or 3 different classes, so they're multi-classed for the most part, with a few exceptions. But they're usually multi-class, and they're really geared towards doing one thing really well. So, for example, a boatload of melee power or ranged power, or they've got some sort of spell power like a cold guy, a cold sorcerer. You know, so these are kind of like the opposite. These are not optimized. Although you can try to optimize them as much as you can, but like I said, these are really all flavor slash concept builds. And what I mean by flavor slash concept build is usually they're ideas based on like a film that is yeah, right, universally well liked. So for example, Lord of the Rings, um, or another fantasy type movie, or even a sci-fi type movie like Star Wars. There are various different ideas that people try to translate over from the movie, or from a book, to and try to make it as a DDO tune. Um, so some of the themes that can, or they can be like a theme. So, for example, fire and ice, two opposite elements. That seems to be a fairly common idea. Ralph Bakshi, I believe, made a movie called Fire and Ice, animated,
It's one of the names
way
of the Game
back.
of Thrones books too.
Yeah, okay, sure, exactly. That's a great example. Um, so there are general ideas that I think are pretty much universal, or at least common amongst gamers specifically, that they try to that some will try to make into a DDO tune. Um,
So we're talking
so
about, just to kind of maybe rephrase it. So we're talking about builds that you have an outside idea and are kind of translating into DDO, as opposed to something where like I'm going to make a DPS character or a healing character or a DC based character. That kind of.
it, that's right. The concept or the flavor build can have those things involved in it, like a really good a DPS tune, like for example, Drist or Erden. If you try to make a Drist clone in DDO, you can do that, but they'll have good DPS, so you kind of like are able to kill two birds with one stone. But the main idea is the main thrust here is the idea of a tune instead of the actual, being the actual, whatever it is you do to pull it off. So the substance of the the gamey parts of the tune.
Okay.
So so are you more clear on what it is I'm
Yeah, I
talking
think so.
about?
I was trying
Okay.
to rephrase it, and just to make sure that we've got an idea, and for the listeners more so than myself.
Okay. So that's what we mean by flavor slash concept build, and I touched on this, a little bit earlier. A mixed, a multi-class versus a pure class. Um, from what I've seen, or from my experiences as a reader of fantasy and science fiction, as a movie fanatic, and even a music lover. These sorts of things come into your head, and you don't normally think of multi-classing. Although one notable exception is Dristo Erden, who is a ranger, a rogue, and I don't know, he's got a third class in there somewhere. At least according to the official TSR, a write-up of him in one of their supplements from like
Sure.
second edition or something. Um, but for the most part, when I think of a concept build, I'm thinking of, is this guy a really good healer, or is this guy a holy warrior? In which case, if he's a really good healer, he might be a favorite soul, or a cleric. But that's all they are. They're not the cleric fighter, or a favorite soul sorcerer, although they could be. That's an interesting idea. But um, uh, but DDO doesn't lend itself well to very disparate concepts being melded into one tune. So
I mean
maybe
that
that isn't
that's
so
kind of
great.
true of D&D in general, though.
Well, true.
Like it's
Yeah,
not anything unique to DDO in terms of role playing games. I mean, it's always been true that certain classes don't really meld well together.
right.
You don't leverage a lot of their power or lose a lot of their power because of the way that they
Sure,
kind of level up and build and stuff like that. So
sure, absolutely. Um, so I guess really my thrust of this part of what I'm trying to get across is, to me, um, is the concept or the flavor build is a single class type build. So, for example, one of the the things that I do is try to take a character from my own pen and paper, uh, you know, characters that I've made. So probably the most recent one I've done is this paladin that I played in Pathfinder, and he was an ASMR paladin, and he was he had a very nice sword and all that sort of thing, and I tried to pick, I trying to get the not only his abilities as a paladin as close to the D&D, the DDO abilities, as close to the D&D abilities, but I'm also looking at itemization. Um, and it's obviously not going to be perfect. So, like, if he has a Holy Avenger, you can use what's the one from uh, Vision of Destruction,
Divine Vengeance.
Divine Vengeance, right? Yeah, you can use that's pretty much a Holy Avenger. And then when you get into the end game area, then you do the Bastard Sword from from Ravenloft that you get in, I believe it's in the Strahd raid. I
Sounds
forget what
right.
the name of that one is. The Morning Lords, I don't know, something or other. Anyway, so you try to get the items that match closest to what your vision of what your old character was. And this guy ran through um, uh, Wrath of the Righteous, which is a Pathfinder adventure path, and it went from 1 to 20, and which is and had mythic elements to it, and so it was truly a mythic character, and was a great tune. And you try to do that in DDO, but Smite Evil's not all that great in DDO, so that's a big part that doesn't translate well, and obviously the itemization doesn't not always translate well, but you do the best you can.
Good news is that you can do a lot of cosmetic stuff with some of the itemization, so it
Yes,
can look more like what you're wanting to do.
exactly. God, that's a good point. I had that in mind to bring up about cosmetic, trying to get it as close as you can, but that's a good point. And another example of that, that I think about it, is another concept might be the Jedi Knight. And of course, Celestia from Caught in the Web is the perfect concept weapon, because it's like a lightsaber. It's made of light. If you get the cosmetic of the Sun Sword from the Strahd raid, it it's the wrong color. It's not blue or green or red. It's kind of goldish, but it actually looks like it's made of light. So that's actually
you could put
another cool way to make your DDO tune look like it might be. You
yeah.
dress it in black. It might be a cool looking Jedi Knight like kind of character.
Can you put the flame the forge wraith or flame from the Sharn pack, that cosmetic on it?
I don't know, and that would
That
probably
would
be
work
a
pretty
very
well.
interesting for a dark Jedi. That might
Yeah.
be a really interesting look. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good idea. I think maybe I'll try that.
So
That sounds kind of cool.
conceptually, like for me, when I'm kind of thinking, like if I'm going to build something like this, the thing that I try to do is boil it down. Okay, what are the core concepts of this build? Like what makes this build? What's important about it, and then how do you kind of figure out how to translate that into DDO? For the example, like a Jedi Knight, the things that strike me if I were trying to translate something like that is like, okay, what's important about making a Jedi Knight? Well, they have like Jedi powers, and then they're also generally really good at combat.
Right.
So, which to me immediately translates into kind of a fighter wizard hybrid,
Hmm.
kind of a thing going on there. Um, which I think in
If
fifth
they ever
edition was
add
really good.
psionics to the game, then that would be even a
Sure.
better translation.
Um, and I would even say posit that then you kind of get this interesting discussion though, right? Like if you're trying to make a Jedi Knight, okay, we want some sort of melee class, so probably either like a fighter or paladin or maybe a ranger if you want to kind of do dual wielding kind of style. But then they
Ninja
can
spy.
sure, yeah.
I
A
mean, they're a
monk
monk. You
could
think
work
that
really
Jedi
well.
Knights are
No,
kind of monkish.
yeah, no, I think that works really well. And then like supplement it with some casting stuff. Then of course you got to decide, well, am I gonna do wizard, bard, or sorcerer, right? Depending, I think sorcerer is kind of too much. It kind of leans more into the damage dealing, as opposed to I think the mind control works a little bit better.
Right.
Um, so I think a monk wizard or a fighter bard is kind of a really good. So that's kind of how I approach these things. Is like, hey, what do they do, and how can I translate that into DDO? A lot of the way that I tend to build characters kind of tends not less the flavor, but more the concept style of okay, I want to build a two-handed user. Right? It tends to be like where I tend to start with a build as opposed to what's the best DPS class these in today, which I think generally is what you get into. Like, talk about like flavor of the month, like what's the best thing that I can do in one of these archetypes, as opposed to
Sure.
I've always kind of approached it from a standpoint like if you look at my list of characters, like okay, I had many years ago it was like I've got one of each class. What do I want that? And I wanted them all to feel differently too, right? So like the barbarian was a two-handed weapon, the paladin was a sword and board, um, fighter was tactics based, stuff like that. That's how I tend to come to a lot of approaching stuff. But it always for me always starts with okay, what is if you're gonna bring in that flavor aspect? For me, it breaks down very quickly to okay, what do they do and how can I translate that? Which is a
Sure.
trick, right?
Sure. Yeah, but again, the most important thing though is to actually draw on inspiration of pre. I don't say that's important, but it seems to me that this is where these ideas come from, are drawing from from specific characters or archetypes, from from your classic fantasy literature. Um, One of the more recent examples of this is a phenomenon I noticed when the Temple of rather when White Plume Mountain came out. There seemed to be a lot of people interested in converting, or rather having a bastard sword version of Storm. There we go. I'm giving myself away. What's the sword's name?
Um,
The black one.
the Black Razor,
Black Racer, thank you. There seemed to be people having that wanted to make instead of it having to be a great sword,
right?
having it as a bastard sword, because Elric of Melnibone wielded a sword called Stormbringer, and I believe it was Gary Gygax, or the guy who made. No, it wasn't Gygax. It was the guy who made the rather the White Plume Mountain, and it wasn't Gygax, it was somebody else. Anyway, he basically in an interview several years after he won the competition to have his module made into rather his dungeon, his homebrew main dungeon, into an actual TSR module, he outright said that that Black Razor was a Stormbringer, analog. So he basically ripped off Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melnibone stories with with the sword, and put it in the what do you call it, White Plume Mountain. So this then leads people to think, well, and basically try to convert it back into an Elric of Melnibone type setting, and so they want to make uh, a sorceress kind of elf kind of character, that wields Stormbringer, and of course in our game it's they have Black Razor now. Now that there's a longsword version, some people are settling for that, and using that as their one-handed sword, and trying to make a tune kind of based or a concept based on Elric of Melbourne. So, and Eldritch Knight, it would be the perfect, the perfect way to make that happen. So, so that would be a real good example of somebody having the character in mind first, and then, thinking about exactly like you said, what is it that they do, and then how do I translate that?
Maybe what I think would be really fun to do is like, what kind of tips do you have? So you've got this idea in mind, you've got this flavor or concept. How do you best go about translating that into a DDO build?
A lot of it is itemization. A lot of it is. So, for
So
example,
like getting the
having the
look.
yeah, getting right, exactly. Getting the look is important. Like you mentioned, cosmetics, that's important. Um, you can draw inspiration, or you can look at other sources that may have already made the character from a classic story into a D&D type character, and model it after that. So, for example, look at Drist's class distribution, and do that, or you could just totally ignore it, and make it how you see Drist being. Um, but itemization is important. Class is important. Not so much Epic Destiny. I mean, that's helpful, um, and we'll go into why it's not so much about Epic Destiny type stuff. We'll go into that in a little bit later. Um, yeah, but the look and feel really seems to be the biggest thing. It doesn't matter whether they're the biggest damage dealer in the world. But if they're but if they're but if they use two weapons, and a weapon in each hand, sure, then you want to do the you want to be a ranger, or at least have some levels of ranger into it, so you can be a tempest. So there's so you think you do have to think about some of the some of the game mechanics, and some of the things that are unique to DDO. You have to at least consider it, but it's by no means, that stuff is by no means, the most important thing. Like I said, it's really just getting the look and feel of the character in a DDO setting. Any other you have anything
No,
other questions about that?
I'm just trying to.
Okay. All right. I guess kind of what I'd like to move on next to is viability of some of these builds. I think we started off the segment, I began saying that these builds are not necessarily the best builds. So they may not be usable, or very useful in either end game, or either in Reaper, or even the end game. Doing some of these raids at like Too Hot to Handle, for example.
I
There
mean, to be
seems to be
fair, most builds are not exactly viable and too hot to handle.
well, that's true, but making a build like this at least somewhat survivable and Too Hot to Handle may compromise some of the concept. May example, getting the sheath, fire sheath. Well, very few characters and so forth in in fantasy, and other stories and songs and so forth have had an ability like that. So if you're really super into, yes, if has to be exactly like my tune that I played in that D&D campaign when I was 14, then you're not going to be able to do that stuff. You're not going to be able to be useful in certain raids, or any raids for that matter, depending on your class distribution and so forth and so on. It really is just the idea of the flavor build, and the the concept is this something in my mind that would be fun to play?
Sure.
And so a lot of these builds are not viable at endgame. They, for the most part, they're mostly all okay in heroics because heroics, aren't that difficult, and especially if you play with other people, you can get through. You could get to 20th level. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. But it's when you start getting to the epic levels and especially the later epic levels, is when, and of course from Reaper, is when you start, might run into trouble. So if you're going to make a purely flavor build, it's for yourself really. And please, if you do take it into the end game, please don't saddle, your idea of what's cool onto into a raiding guild who wants to do, too hot to handle on R3 or something, because you probably will not be able to contribute, and you'll be more of a liability than you'll be an asset. So, just that's just kind of a warning to people who want to come up with a cool idea. It may not be it might be cool to you, but it might not be that cool at all to, the other people you're running with.
It'd be a good thing to bring to a static group.
Oh, sure. Sure. And I could see a static group full of, concept builds. This guy is, Dristor, and this guy's a Jedi Knight. This guy is,
Does that
Sigmar Heldenhammer from
does
the
that break
Warhammer
it down though?
stuff.
Break down the flavor and concept to have all those guys from different universes.
Well,
I'm just
I
asking.
guess. Well, if you're all playing in Stormreach anyway, yeah, you by default you're going to be basically
That's fair.
breaking it down anyway. So,
That's fair.
so, but yeah, no, but there might be some, like, there might be something fun about that. You'd have to come up with a good healer archetype or thing, something like that that fits in. But uh, Michael Moorcock, when he did his when he did all his Elric books, his Corum books, his Hawk Moon books, and so forth and so on. He a couple of times he actually brought, certain characters that are in all these different universes, in the multiverse, into one specific place, and he had them interact with each other. And it was an interesting, they made for an interesting chapter or two. Um, and so you could do something, something that could be just as cool, depending on, depending on your imagination and how much you're willing to, um, you know to cross over into somebody else's universe or idea.
Sure.
I guess I've already mentioned, um, one of the things that I've tried to done was use my paladin from Pathfinder. Have you ever tried to recreate an old D&D character of yours, or
Not
something from
really.
a book or anything like that, or another video game even?
No, not really. I tend to, like I said, I tend to come from at it from a standpoint of, or I used to, like when I started playing DDOs, I like having different build styles, like having the characters play differently. So I tended to build from this aspect of, okay, there's this many classes in the game. What does each class do that's different than what other classes do, or is good at being different what other classes do? That's kind of how I tend to approach building. So it was uh, a lot of my characters still are kind of based on that idea, right? So my barbarian's two-handed, sorcerer is arcane damage. My wizard is kind of a DC caster. Cleric is kind of a healer. Favorite soul kind of more as a nuke. Well, now he's a tank, but then he was trying to be kind of more offensive, divine casting. Druid was kind of melee, divine, that kind of stuff. That's
Sure.
tend to how I approach building.
Yeah, and sometimes I do that too. I see. So, for example, the quarterstaff from, the Strahd raid. That's the one that has all the force spell power,
Mm-hmm.
on it. That's the ideal staff for a wizard who was specialized in force magic. And in this game, it's magic missile, chain missile, force missile. So it's pretty much a one trick pony. It's really you really just cast magic missiles, and that was to some degree pretty fun when Sharadi, when Sharadi Champion was good about that. They since they really made some changes to Sharadi, the force mage is really, the magic missile mage is really not all that great anymore. So you know um, but you see an item that drops in DDO and you think to yourself, wow, this could be a really good, concept, it's just a force mage, and oh, by the way, that morphs into a wizard that I played in another adventure way back, way long time ago before Pathfinder came out. And that my idea was basically I was just going to be completely a force mage, and what I did was I was a wizard for 10 levels. I took 5 levels of a prestige class called the Argent Savant, and then another 5 levels in another prestige class in Dragon Magazine called the Force Missile Mage, and so that was my whole concept. And then I started to play the thing, and I thought, well, I also need to do something else, and so I specialized in, screwing around with other people's magic. So I was able to, bust down through through things like spell resistance, or uh, whenever they had something that had to make a caster level check on, or to dispel or something like that. I was really good at that too. So I found out I had to do two things in order to be, somewhat more useful, than just a one trick pony like casting magic missiles all over the place.
Yeah,
So
good
and that
general
in
idea
DDO,
for
that's
building any character.
yeah, exactly. In DDO, that's exactly right. Especially if you're a Sork and you're like a fire Sork. Well, a lot of the things are resistant at least, or immune to fire even. So you better have another element that you can do, kind of thing. So yeah, so that's another thing. A lot of these concept builds, flavor builds are one trick ponies, because it's in things like in books and so forth. You know, magic isn't as thrown around as much as it is in DDO. So if the wizard in Wizard's First Rule does basically one thing that's really good, you know, eh, there really isn't a whole lot of opportunity for him to do a lot of other different things. So you need to think about, what else could this guy do, to be useful at least in DDO. Again, not necessarily viable at endgame, but at least useful.
Yeah, I usually try to boil down a build of, okay, what's the primary thing I want it to do, what's the secondary thing I want it to do, and maybe a tertiary thing. Like beyond that, I I tend to try to stay away from going any deeper than that. Like focus on three things, like, and put it in a priority order, right? Not to say that you don't necessarily give up maybe the primary thing for some of the secondary thing. We start talking about action point spending and stuff like that, but um, that's kind of how I would tend to approach something, like from a concept of, like, a bard, for example, comes from the standpoint of, okay, what's the first thing I want him to be able to do, and it usually is some combination of DPS, healing, crowd control. So no, my
Gee, that's
my, I mean that's like every basic bard stuff, but and then it becomes a question of how to balance those three things, which one's primary, secondary, and tertiary, and by how much.
mhm, sure. Let's see. Oh, and sources of inspiration. That seems to be. We've touched on pretty much most of the sources, but so sources for me are things like movies,
Mm-hmm.
books. What do you call it? I mentioned what else? I mentioned something else too. Books, movies, um,
In TV shows,
TV shows are a good one. Oh, characters you've played
right? Yep.
in other games, and even songs
Well,
is
that's
one
an
that I
interesting
really haven't
route to
touched on
go.
that. There's so for example, there was a song put out by the Buggles on their second album called Adventures in Modern Recording back in 1981. It was called Rainbow Warrior. And at the time when I started to think about this, I was really big into Diablo 2. And so one of the things in Diablo 2 that um, sort of uh, bridged the gap between the song Rainbow Warrior and a character in Diablo 2 was that in Diablo 2 there is there's a class called the Paladin, and on the skill trees, one of the skills that he has, it's a combat skill called Vengeance. And when he hit things with his sword, he would do three different kinds of elemental damage all at the same time. So it'd be fire, electric, and cold damage he would do. And so one of the things that you're trying to do is you're trying to find ways to increase the amount of fire, cold, and electric damage he does. And in Diablo 2, one of the things one of the things that you can do is you can put gems, different color gems, into slots on your armor, your sword, your shield, and your helmet. And all of these different color gems would do additional elemental damage. So, if you slotted a ruby into your sword, and then that's extra fire damage. If you slotted a sapphire, that's extra cold damage, and if you slotted a topaz, that's electric damage. So you could fill all of your slots with all sorts of different combinations of rubies, sapphires, and topazes, and you would do a boatload of elemental damage. And you can see the idea of all these different colored gems slotted into his equipment. You can definitely see where the idea of a rainbow comes, and you can even put in green emeralds that did poison damage. It's not elemental damage, but you know you got the idea of all these different colors, and then of the rainbow, and then he's a warrior, and you make this connection, and you say, I'm going to make that guy. I'm going to make the Rainbow Warrior, and
So I'm thinking a purple skinned tiefling, uh, or maybe a different color, with like the green Reaper armor, a blue Reaper helm, and a red Reaper cloak.
there you go.
Seems a little
Do a lot of
garish.
different, yeah, and you know what, you don't have to do a lot of elemental damage. You're the guy that it looks like, he looks like a rainbow, so that fits in perfectly. That fits in perfectly. Although he's probably better because you'll better be able to optimize it, because you won't be married to the idea of all these different colored elements of damage. But yeah, that's I think you're getting it. I think you're getting it. So yeah. So that was a song. That was an example of a song that inspired me. So like I said, there's all different places that you can get inspiration for an idea that you think might be kind of cool. And if you're into role playing at all, then if you happen to have a group with which you can actually role play, then it works even better, because then you can sound like and act like the guy that you have in mind, or gal.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people. I've run into a lot of people that have, like, oh, that's interesting, Bill. What are you doing there? Like, oh, I'm trying to translate my pen and paper character. My
Hmm.
my source of inspiration for pen and paper characters is somewhat limited in that I'm not very good at role playing, so I tended to build characters more from an optimized.
Sure.
Even in my pen and paper, I'm min maxing for combat.
Yeah, and I play with some guys in a Pathfinder game on Sunday nights, that I've been playing with since high school, honestly. And we didn't play Pathfinder back then, but we played other games. Um, and some guys that that play are way more min maxers than I am, but I am more of a min maxer than some other people are. So
Yep.
it's a whole range of how much of a concept you have versus completely number driven. You put it out in spreadsheets and you figured the absolute best way to squeak out every little bit of power, out of a feat or even a trait, in Pathfinder. So, and boy, I see the min maxers in DDO. It's to an extreme. I mean, they're just people
Yeah.
that are just absolutely amazing. They're
Uh-huh.
gifted. I mean, they have a gift about figuring all this stuff out. And I don't know whether it's their IQ or whether it's the time that they have.
I think it's partly both, but it's also a pattern recognition thing of
Sure,
seeing how you can leverage different abilities into those kind of things. You know, recognizing that
so
this ability over here in this tree meshes really well with this ability over here in this tree,
sure.
and how to.
There could very well be such a thing as a DDO savant, a build savant.
There's
Could very well
definitely
be.
also some. I mean, there's some easy ones too, right? Like, I don't think it doesn't seem to be too hard to make a really powerful inquisitive build, for example.
No, pretty much
Although
anybody can do that.
I have heard though that like if you want the highest DPS inquisitive build, that Bard is the way to go, which is intriguing because it's not necessarily what you would immediately think of
No, I
right
never
off
would have
the
thought that.
top. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I would think sneak attack would be really something you'd really highly leverage as
Sure.
well. But there's definitely people that can kind of think off the wall of how to really leverage different abilities and different trees for different classes. And you're also very much constrained in DDO in that you can only pick 3 classes.
Yeah.
Does limit things a lot, and of course, there's also there are not a lot, but there are some alignment based class restrictions still that impact how you can
Sure.
multi-class different builds.
Monk barbarian would be awesome, but
Yeah, although that I think is something that they kind of moved away from in D&D, because I don't even think in 5th edition there's really alignment restrictions
no,
anymore.
the alignment seems to be de-emphasized quite a bit
Yeah,
in fifth edition, from what I can tell.
so but there's definitely things that are unintuitive that people come up and find that are really powerful. And
Hmm.
someone had to figure out that Fury of the Wild back in the day before they revamped things. It may still
Yeah.
be is
Yeah.
the highest DPS for a range build.
Sure.
It's not
Sure.
not obvious, I think. But
Yeah.
anything else you want to cover with flavor concept builds, or should we call it a show here?
No, I think we can call it a show.
All
I
right.
just wanted to, throw that out there and get people to start thinking a little bit, maybe a little bit outside the box, and you know, start to enjoy more of the fun part, the less numbersy, the less optimizing aspects of the game, and maybe think about something else, so maybe think about something that you would have, make some fun with, as a side project kind of thing.
Maybe your next past life.
Well, sure.
Break up the
Sure,
doldrums a
exactly.
little
if,
bit
if you're doing a
of building the
TR,
same thing.
then just go up to, if you're going up just to 20th level, try it out and see if you like it.
And you may find that the challenge of adapting a build is actually reward in and of itself. So,
Well, for example, if you wanted to make the Jedi Knight, and you wanted to get the lightsabers, you had to get Celestia, and then you'd have to go into epic levels to do that. So yeah, so you'd have to go and do some equipment farming and so forth and so on in order to make it right. So yeah, there's definitely a ways to an aspect of actually making it happen
Mhm.
by equipment, or even if you do want an epic destiny where that fits great. Um, you know, there's definitely ways to do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you kind of taking point this week.
Sure.
And thanks to all the other contributors for DDOcast. Anything you want to plug before we head out?
No, I'm not much of a plugger, so
That's okay.
by all means, go right ahead.
Well, thanks to Standing Some Games, Wizards of the Coast, and to Cybears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. And hey, you can hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us discuss, hey, is there a topic you'd like to hear us discuss? Email me, leave a comment. We're always looking for more ideas on what kind of content to cover here. Or hey, you just want to say hi, you can do that too. Leave a comment or email us, ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates at DDOcast on Twitter. May all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.